Okay, yesterday we were doing, good morning, we're doing the Pasha of Nesachim, right? We're doing the Pasha of Nesachim. So we dash in this pasuk in Chomer. What pasuk? Let's see. Let me get it up here. Oh, that's not good. Yeah. So the pasuk said, "Vasisim Yishel Hashem Oila Izavach lefalei neder mincha." So Oila excluded mincha. Zevach was shlamim. Oy was toida lefalei neder minadava. That those included that the nesachim by those two. The falei neder binavri excluded chatas v'yosham Pesach bechor and Maisa, which all are not in the dava. Obi moadechem and included the shalmei chagiga and the oilas re'iyah. And then we got to what is min aboka min atzoin, come to teach me. So we came into a machlokes between Rabbi Yeshaya and Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yeshaya, he's of the opinion, he said that was to exclude oilas ha'oif. The Falei Neder Nedava would exclude what? Oilas ha'oif. Okay, the lasses rechtechal Hashem min abaka min atzoin. Excuse me, not lefalei neder min abaka min atzoin was to exclude oilas ha'oif. That would exclude oilas ha'oif. Now, we saw that Rabbi Yeshaya, when things are mentioned, it means two. Until it means only two, until you separate the two. According to Rabbi Yochanan, it means either or, until you put them together again. Okay? So now, let's pick it up from one more time. Pick it up on Sadik Amid Beis, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines up. And came out, right? And I said, Adam Kiyakar became Karban Lashem, Min Abehema Min Abakar, Min Atzoin, Yachalo Oima Harei Alai Oila Yavi Mishnayim. I might think you have to bring both Bakar and Soin. Tamad Laima Min Abakar, Oy Min Atzoin. Rotza Echad Mevi, Rotza Shnayim Mevi. Okay, so now, this would be good. Okay, so that's what it comes to go ahead and separate. Guys, we're separating. You don't have to bring Bakar and Soin if you say Harei Alai. Good? Now, who does this work out according to? Rabbi Yochanan, Lama Likra, Lo Rabbi Yochanan, I have no Havamina they should be two together. Because again, it's mashma always either mommy or daddy by Klola, guys. Remember, either mommy or daddy. And therefore, why would I think you'd have to bring both? The fact that Mitzias is it's one and the same. As it says, until the Torah puts them together, it means either or. So there's no Havamina that you could bring from Bakar at Soin, because it's separate by nature. On that, the Gemara says, no, I have a pasuk to put them together. Sal Kedai Chamina Amin Aleph, Hoyel Ksiv Uminat Soin, it says, by the Oila, beginning of pasuk Vayikra Aleph. Again, this is that. The Oilot Soin, guys, is by Midbar Tesvav. In Vayikra Aleph, it says Min Abaka Min Atzoin, and I would think the Ksiv Yachtov. Therefore, I would think it's like together. Memela, I need the Oy Bakar Atzoin by Midbar Tesvav to separate them. Guys, good. But again, by Bakar Atzoin in Tesvav to separate them according to Rabbi Yochanan, because I think they're together. Now, L'chayra, Rabbi Yeshaya also should need the pasuk to separate. Why? Because Rabbi Yeshaya always holds there together, even without the minat sign. So how could he use it to teach me mina oif that is not the oif, right? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yeshaya, Rabbi Yoshia, the Amar, Afagav, the like Siv Yachdav, even it doesn't Siv Yachdav, Ish Imay V'aviv Timash, right? Command the Siv Yachdav Dami, Li Boy Kra, you need a pasuk to separate. And therefore, you couldn't use the oy bakar and sign by the tesvav to go ahead and tell me mina the oif is out of the ballpark. I needed to separate that. If you say harei alai, you don't bring mina bakar min that sign. Says the Gemara, haksiv im oil karbanoi mina bakar v'im min that sign karbanoi. And so he darshans that the vav separates the two. The idach Rabbi Yochanan, what does he do with that? When do you go ahead and bring two separate ones? That when they explicitly it says it openly. If it says minastam, everything you bring from baka minat sign, right? If it says haralai minat baka or minat sign, but it says haralai stam to bring a korban, maybe both. Kamash malan. Okay, now we're going back over the brisa, guys. Remember the brisa? We said oy zavach teaches me a toida. Amamar, toida minayin. How do you know you have to bring the sachim with a toida? How do you have to bring the sachim with a toida? Tamid loymar, oy zavach, the oy. Says the Gemara, atu toida lab zavachu. You said the pasuk zavach is to go ahead and say that shlomim requires what? A nesech. So if the shlomim requires a nesech, why was it necessary to say oy by toida? You know, this pasuk, fellas, right? This pasuk. You tell me zevach is shlamim. You tell me oy is what? Oy is toida. What isn't toida part of zevach? Why didn't I need expression of oy separately to go ahead what and include a toida? Why would I think a toida is not included with the zavach that you would need a nesech? That I need a special limud from oy to say that what there is nesech by toida. It's the rich. You need a special limud. Since the toida has a lechem accompanying it, and therefore I would say that the what? That the lechem is in place of the nesachim, loiti boy nesachim. Good. So therefore you need oy to tell me no, it still needs. Fred the Gemara zavach tells me shlamim. Fred the Gemara, but oy tells me toida. Fred the Gemara, why isn't toida included in zavach? Why didn't you special limit for toida? Because toida has a company lechem, and since it has a company lechem, you would think the lechem is the makam of an nesachim. Therefore, you need oy to tell me no. You have to bring a nesach side by side. Fred the Gemara umayshna me'el nazir. Why is regular toida different than el nazir? Dika bahade lechem uboy nesachim. You had a havamina that the lechem would be in the place of the nesachim, right? But why would you have such a havamina? You see, by nazir, you're bringing two types of wafers, and nonetheless you bring the sachim. So you see that the lechem is not in place. Again, the whole reason you're telling me the toida oy is because you might think the lechem is placed in the sachim. I'll disprove you from el nazir. El nazir brings lechem, and still it brings the sachim. So why would you need oy? On the Gemara answer, and hasam shnei minim. Over there it's two minim, and therefore you have to bring a nesach. Hacha over here by the toida arba minim, it's four different types. So I would think since it's four different types, what you don't have to bring the sachim. Kamashmalan the oy that you have to bring the sachim. So again, what we did so far this morning is to go back over the pasuk that we darshan yesterday, and we went ahead and fine tuned it a little bit. The oy zavach. Okay, since Fred the Gemara, v'lich the rachmana lefalei neder oylin edava. Yeah, let's see. This is just say this, and don't say oila. And I know an oila is an edava, so I would know oila. I guess you learn that mincha also. That mincha, mincha is not. I would exclude mincha as well. Okay, as I read the Gemara. Okay, so back by us. Eloi kasarachmana oila havamina vasisem ishel Hashem klal. Lefalei neda nedava prat. Lerech nichaya chazu klal. Klalu pratu klali atadon elokena prat. Mar pamafurish dava sheina ba al chet. Af kol shein ba al chet. Oitzi chatus li asham shein ba in al chet. Avi b'choru ma'isa pesach shein ba al chet. Tamalema oila to exclude what? From thinking that way. Okay, let's see the pasuk, guys. Vasisim Yishel Hashem klal. Vasisim Hashem is a klal, guys. Now, lefalei neder or nedava. Again, you're not saying oila. Lefalei neder or benedava is a prat. L'reich nichayach is what? Is a klal. So fellas, if you would do that, you would exclude chatas v'asham, but you would not exclude Pesach, Meiser, and Bechor. If you just did that, klal pratu klal, l'fali neder would just be nedava, right? But anything that's similar to that, you know, it's not the nedava, such as chatas v'asham. But you'll be more inclusive to go ahead and include what? Pesach, Maisa, and Chata, and Bechor, that they would also need a Nesachim. Therefore, it says oila to teach me no, that dafka and the dead and the dava, and not bechor, maisa and bechor, which is not brought al neder in the dava, which is not brought in neder in the dava. That's what oila teaches me. Again, if you have the kalu pratu kal without the oila, you would just say neder in the dava. That would exclude only chatas or asham. But it would include Pesach, Meiser, and Bechor that it would need a Nesach. Therefore, Oila makes it more specific that no, only Nedava. And since a Pesach, Chatas, and Pesach, Meiser, and Bechor are not brought in Nedava, they do not need a Sachim. That's what I know. But without Oila, I would know that. Right? I would just exclude Chatas Yasham. Okay, that's what. Let's see it one more time inside. Eloi Kos Rachmana Oila, with 2 lines up where it gets thin. Havamino Asisim Yishel Hashem, Klal. Lefali nedel and dava prat, lereich nichoya chas v'klal. Kalu pratu klal iyatadon el kena prat. Ma prat lefali nedel mefurish dava shein bo al chet. Av kol shein bo al chet. Oitzi chatas v'osam shein boyin al chet. However, Avi I will include in the Parsha Nesachim Bechoru Maisa Pesach. I will include that shein boyin al chet. Tamad loima. Therefore, oila. Tamad loima oila. That you're excluding what? You're excluding Pesach. Chatas, Pesach, Bechor, and Maisa. Hashdichsiv oila klalu prat marbis. What are you going to include from this klalu prat? Mar prat mefur she'ena mechuyev v'oimed. It's something that what it's speaking in Yinadava. So she'en mechayev v'oimed. In other words, you're not mechayev to bring. It's just something's been a dava. Of course, she'en mechayev v'oimed. Who would be included in the parsha of Nesachim? Something also that what you're not mechayev to bring. Lahevi vladois kachim. If you have a vlad of kachim that's born, you would bring a nesach with it. Utmurasan, tumuras kachim, you bring what? You bring a nesach. The oila habam and a moisris, you have left over, right? Oila comes from moisris. The asham shnitik levi'iyah. Let's say in asham fellas, remember, asham shemesa by leha, asham shekipru by leha. So kol shebechatis mesa by asham, you pasteurize it until it gets a mum, yeah. And then what happens? You bring that as an oil. Let's say you didn't wait for a mum and you brought it as an oila. So they also even need an esech. And all this all those would need nesachim. Now you're telling oy min at sign. You're telling me oy min at sign is you don't bring 2 at once. Lidrasha. Why do you need the fali neder and dava? It says why do you need them to divide? In other words, you're telling me you have an oy to be mechalik. So why would you need to? You told me before in the beginning of the share that you're using that to divide the bakar and sign. Why do you need neder and dava to go ahead and divide? Even without that, you know oy. It says oy. Oy is mechalik. It's the rich. You still need the following neder and dava. You know when you don't need more than one nesech is when you bring both a neder and a dava. Kamash malon, the I see neder lechudei liboy nesachim, the I see dava lechudei leis nesachim. In other words, fellas, you would think you when you chayiv both, when you bring both, fellas, when you chayiv both, when you bring both. If I bring a neder and a dava, I'm chayiv 2. What happens if I bring only one? Right. So kamash malon that no kamash malon you chayiv for one and neder chayiv in a dava. Okay, the Gemara now is pretty straightforward. It's a little wordy. Says the Gemara, Hanicha le Rabbi Yoshia. This is good Rabbi Yoshia, right? El Rabbi Yonasan Lamali, since he says they're divided anyway. Saklei Chamin and Aisi Neder lechudei liboy nesachim. Aisi Neder lechudei boy nesachim. Aisi Neder nedava to sagim nesachim chad. I think 1. Kamash malon. Oy b'moadechem. What is the oy? Oy with dashing the oys. What's the oy b'moadechem? Lamali. Saklei Chamin and Hani Mili the kamaisi oyle beneder ushlam benedava. Inami ibcha, either oila benedava and shlamim beneder. Avahechad the kamaisi oilu shlamim beneder. Inami oilu shlamim benedava. Shem nederecha v'shem nedava achas. He utasagi lei benesachim the chad kamash malon. In other words, the separation was when he had 2 different shemos. One was in neder, one was in nedava. What happens in the both neder, both nedarim, or both nedavais? In that case, I need the oim madechem. Even in that case, you're going to bring separate what? You're going to bring separate. Take Kamash Malon. Take out the next words. And that now darshan. V'chitase ben baka oila oizavach lamali. When it says v'chitase ben baka oizavach lamali, what are you doing with the oy there? Again, we're darshaning, guys. We're darshaning these pesukim, right? V'chisase ben baka oilo yisavach lefali neder shlamim Lashem. We're dashing this pasuk now. Okay, Lamali, it's there. Salka Aminan, Hani Mili, Hechad de Kamaisi, Oilu Shlamim Beneder. Inami, Oilu Shlamim Benedava. Abel Hechad de Kamaisi, Stay Oilois, Chad Beneder, Chad Benedava. Oy Inami, Stay Shlamim, Echad Beneder, Echad Benedava. Until now, fellas, what have we done? We went ahead and we spoke about. You're bringing both. You're bringing an oila and you're bringing a shlamim. And then we had a limit for whether you bring one as a neder, one as a nedava. We had a neat neder if you both in his nedarim or both in his nedava, right? How do you know that what if you bring two shlamims, not just an oila shlamim? Now you're bringing two shlamim or two oilos. Until now, you're bringing one oila, one shlamim. We never have a limit for two oilos or two shlamim. We didn't have a limit for that. Says the Gemara, I would say Shem Shlamim Achasi Shem Oila Achasi the Saglim and the Sachem the Chad Kamash Malon that this V'chein Tasim Bak Oila Izavach Fali Neda Oy Shlamim is Oilo Shlamim fellas an Oila or Shlamim whether you bring two Oilas is a Neder and a Dava you bring two Shlamim is a Neder and a Dava you're going to require two Nisachim Kamash Malon Lefali Neda Oila Shlamim Lamali that's okay that's the beginning of the pasuk Oila Izavach what about the Oy Shlamim the end of the pasuk. Sakta imina hani mile hechad demaisi shtei oilos chad benedva chad benedava. Inami shtei shlamim chad benedva chad benedava. Aval hechad de kamaisi shtei oilos beneda shtei oilos benedava. Inami shtei shlamim beneda shtei shlamim benedava shem oila achas who is shem neda achas yiv sagle ben sachem. The chad kamash malan. Okay, Rabbi Yoshia and Rabbi Yoshia. Let's see below. Let's see the Rashi. Rabbi Yoshia 4 lines up from the bottom. Rabbi Yoshia the Amar Leel. The high min abako min atzoyin lemute oila soif. Guys, he went and Vayikra Aleph, right? He went. We began share Vayikra Aleph. He used it to go be mamayit oila soif, right? Because okay, that he Rabbi Yoshia used it. It said zevach, like Rabbi Yoshia who used this to be mamayit oila soif. Oy lamali. Why do you need the oy? According to him, why do you need the oy? Bishleim Rabbi Yonason. Darish oy lechalik. He dashes the oy to divide it because you think that since they're put together, it's both. El Rabbi Yoshia, my darish pay. Why does he dashin with this oy? So Rabbi Yoshia, we want to know since he used it for oilus oif, why does he use it? Hi bakum in that soin lamali saklei chaminan hani mili betray mini. Okay, let's. Salkadait chamina. Hani mili betray mini. Let's go with the girsa on the side. You have a girsa on the side. Old people with old gemaras have a girsa on the side. People with new gemaras have letters that tell them go to a Masaras Shas. Hani mili betray mini. Avo bechad mina ubebas achas. Now we're adding another factor, two minim, and the same time to sagile be nisachim. In other words, if it's two separate minim, bakav etzayin, and in two separate times, then you bring two. What happens if it's bakar at the same time? How do you as a neder or an adava, right? Kamash malon. Okay, let's see back inside. That's what he learns from that pasuk. Okay, basically you have at the end of the day. You know, at the end of the day, no matter what you do, you got to bring a nesach for each one. You bring a nesach for the neder, a nesach for the nedava. Whether you bring two oilers or two shlamim, whether one's a neder, one's a nedava, it doesn't make a difference. We have limudim that you go ahead and you're going to bring the nesach, separate nesachim. So now we said that fellas, a chatos and an asham do not require nesachim. Doesn't require nesachim, but two exceptions. The mitzvah, the chatas of asham does require nesach, right? That was our mishnah. By the mitzvah, it does require. So what we need is this pasuk, not this one. I don't know. I have to get rid of this. I'm sorry. See a pasuk? Ubiyom hashmini yikach. You see that?
Yes.
Okay, this is speaking about the Ashir, the wealthy guy of Mitzrayim. Ubiyom hashmini yikach shnei gfasim tmimim, two males. The kafsa achas, one female. Bashnasa, a year old. Ushloish esroinim, three esroinim. Soiles mincha belulu bashemen v'loig echad shaman. So you're bringing one mincha per one carbon, and the lagechad, is for the ears and spritzing in front of the vim dalhu, and if he's poor, then yasam exeges mincha v'leg shaman. Okay, so this is what it says over here. Okay, so now let's see what we got. Says the Gemara, Minani Mili, how do you know the Chatas of Mitzayra and the Asham of Mitzayra being the Sachim? The Tan Rabbanan, Ushloish Esroinim Soilis Mincha, Shloish Esroinim Soilis Minchas B'Minchas Haba Im HaZevach HaKosim Medaber. Atoim B'Minchas Haba Im HaZevach, Oy Ein El B'Mincha Haba B'Fnei Atzmai. Maybe it's not a mincha that's accompanying. Guys, a mincha that's accompanying the Zevach is called in Sachim, right? It's called, okay. Keshuoime behela koines oila ves hamincha haviyome mincha haba imazevach kosim bedaber. V'dayin any yedem tunin sachim. Okay, so I know that you're bringing a mincha with it. How do you have to bring a nesach? How do you know you have to bring wine with it? Tamaloymar, the pasuk says v'yayin nesach reviyasahin tasa ala oila izavach. So now I messed this up. I have to go back. I have to go back and find this. Okay. How do you know Nisachim, fellas? Right? How do you know Nisachim? So what does it say? V'yayin lanesech revius hahin tasa al ha'oila oila zavach lekeves ha'echad. Guys, we're going to dash in this pasuk. Look at it again. V'yayin lanesech revius hahin tasa al ha'oila oila zavach lekeves ha'echad. Back in our Gemara. How do you know? Tamalim v'yayin lanesech revius hahin tasa al ha'oila oila zavach lekeves ha'echad oila su oilas mitzayra. Zevach su chatas mitzayra. Oila zavach su asha mitzayra. So fellas, look, this is the pasuk that teaches me the oila of the mitzayra, the chatas of the mitzayra, the chatas of the mitzayra, the oila mitzayra, the chatas of mitzayra. Zavach, the oy is the asham of the mitzayra. So this pasuk in the Parsha of Nesachim is teaching me what we need to know. This Reviyas Ahin, what are you bringing it for? You're bringing it for the oil of the Mitzayra, you're bringing it for the Chatas of the Mitzayra, or you bring it for the Asham of the Mitzayra. And then it says, the Kevasecha, we're going to dash in the Pasuk. Fred the Gemara, v'tepik Shavayim Mizevach. Why did you need a limud from Oi to teach me Asham and Lezevach to teach me Chatas? Why don't you say Zevach will teach me both? The word Zevach will teach me both Chatas and Asham. We have a separate limud. The Oyas teach me Asham, the Zevach teach me Chatas. Let the Zevach teach me both Chatas or Asham. The Omamar, Chatas Asham, the Machloikas Rashi and Tosis. According to Rashi, it's speaking by the Nazir. According to Tosis, it's speaking about that it's bought on one day. Talmud Loimar, Zevach. It says Zevach. So what do you see? That Zevach can include both. So Fred the Gemara, why do I need a separate limud for Asham? For Oi, I can learn Asham from Zavach the same way I learn Chatas from Asham, Zavach. This word should cover both. When do they cover both? When they both do the same job. So by the Nazir, for example, the Asham is allowing him to start counting again. And the chatas is to go ahead and allow him to back in the machne, to allow him to eat, to take a haircut. So it's doing the same job. Masha'en came by mitzayra, it's two separate things. By mitzayra, aval heichad the asham lahachshir. Here the asham is counting machshir mitzayra to come into the machne. The chatas l'chape, because it's one of the 7 averis for lashon hara, being in trei kroi, right? Good. Okay, so fellas, we just said We just said the end part of the Mishnah, right? The end part of the Mishnah was what? That Chatas Mitzayra and Asha Mitzayra are unique because they need Nesachim. In the Parsha of Nesachim, Bamidbar Tesvav Pasuk Yud, where are we learning it out from? It says Oy Zavach. The Zavach is teaching me Chatas. Oy is teaching me Asham. For the Gemara, let Zavach teach me both. And for the Gemara, it only teaches me both when they come for the same reason. But here they're not coming for the same reason. The Asham is coming to be Machshim, that the Tzara should be allowed back in. And the Chatas is going to be Mechapa for the Aveira that causes the Tzaras in the first place. Good? Now the Gemara is going back over that pasuk. So we have the pasuk in front of us, and the Gemara is going back over that pasuk. Again, here's the pasuk. V'yayin. I try to be cute. I couldn't do it. V'yayin lanesech raviyas ahin tasa ala oila ala zavach lakeves echad. So now we're going back. Says the Gemara. Zevach zuchatas mitzayra. Ve'im zuchatas ve'osham de nazir. Why do you say it's speaking about you said that needs the sachim? Maybe the asham and the chatas of the nazir needs the sachim. So it's not to say that. The Tanya, umin chasam niskehem by lost, right? The pasuk, again, I don't have these pasukim over here. You have them in your Gemara, or you don't. It's Bamidbar Vav, Tezvav in Parshas Nasai, the Parsha Naziris. Okay, I'm taking this off the screen. You should know it by now. If you don't, I didn't do my job, but I can't feel guilty. So now, it says, V'sal matzai soiles chalas bulus b'shemen rukiki matzai b'shucham b'shamen u'min chasam de minchis v'niskehem. So what are we darshaning? This is why that pasuk is not speaking about the osham, the chatas of a nazir. Right? The Tanya Menachos V'niskehem by Lasai u'b'shlama v'kosim medaber. It's speaking about its oil and its shlomim. It's not speaking about the chatas and so you can't say it's speaking about the chatas of the asham of the nazir. It says ve'esa ayil yaseh zevach shlomim u'min chasoy v'niskoy. Ayil b'chal hoya. Ayil was what in the category of the other elim that need nesachim. Why are you taking it out by nazir, fellas? If every ayil needs a sachim, why do you need a special pasuk by nazir to tell me that an ayil needs a nesach? It's no different than any other ones. So therefore, it can't be the chatas of the oila of the nazir. Memela, we know it's speaking about the mitzayra. Oila zu oilas mitzayra, right? The first part of the pasuk. Ve'ema zu oilas yaledes. Let's say it's the oila of yaledes. Good. Maybe the oila of yaledes needs the sachim. Rabbi, that we know that it needs an esach from the end of the pasuk. The Tanya, okay, guys, I keep on doing this to you. Let's see the pasuk. V'yayin lanesach reviyas ahin tasa ala oila is oila swat oilas mitzayra l'zavach chatas mitzayra ois ashem mitzayra lakeves echad is oila yaledes. Talk about the Torah Shabbat Peh, guys, right? Talk about Torah Shabbat. Lakeves echad. This keves is to teach me what? This keves is to teach me that the yoledis is oila needs what? It needs a nesech. So since I know that from the keves, the oila means mitzayra. Since I know that from the keves, the oila means mitzayra. It says keves ha'echad. What's the echad? It's the echad eser shel ma'isa shekorv shlamim. Outside. You're doing your ma'isa behema, and you get messed up with the numbers. Number 9 comes out, and you call it 10, and then you call number 10 11, right? You make a mistake, and then you go and you call number 11 10. So the last one is a shlamim. So it's that shlamim. You might think, right? It doesn't need nesech. Why not? Because you thought it was Maisa Behema. Guys, Maisa Behema doesn't need, right? Bechor Maisa and Pesach. So you might think that how could the Tafel be Muhammad and the Ikka? This Shlomim is a mistaken Maisa. Maisa does not need. You would think the Shlomim doesn't need. Therefore, Keves HaEcha, teach me this one does need. Geschmack. Again, we dash in that pasuk in Chaymer, right in front of you, Oilis Mitzayra, Zeva chatas mitzoira, oi oshem mitzoira, and keves is oilus yeledes, and the echad is this mistake. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Okay. So echad ze echad esa shel ma'isa. It's the 11th one of ma'isa. Shekarav shlamim. Shleimatzinu le b'chol Torah. We don't find b'chol Torah shei tafel chama min ikar. We don't find that the tafel should be chama min ikar. Here, this is a tafel, the shlamim to the ma'isa. Yet the ikar does not need. Here, it does need. Very geschmack. Okay, now you said the oilus yoledes. You had a kasha, right? You had a kasha. Maybe oila means oyoledes and not mitzaira. So you said the keves teaches me oilus mitzaira, oilus yoledes. Rava comes to give it different teretz. Rava Amar, ezedavish etzorach shloisha ribuyim, which is the carbon that needs 3 ribuyim. Haviyayim ezu mitzaira. It needs mitzaira, so there's no havamina, fellas. There's no havamina that the oila could mean what? Can mean yoledes, because you need 3 ribuyim by what? By the mitzaira, the oila, the chatas and the asham, and since I need it for that, there's no havamina that it could be what? But that it could be oilus yoledes. I don't know what he does with the keves. I don't know. I don't know what he does with the keves according to that lingua. Okay, more psukim. I didn't realize how far this is going to go. So geschmack. Okay. Pasuk vav, guys. Pasuk vav. Oil tasa mincha soila shnei asroinim belula b'shemen shlisha sahin. So you have the what? This is the 2 esroinim, and shlisha sahin is a third of a hin is 4. So 4 to 2, it's a 2 to 1 ratio. La'ayel lamali. Why do I need this to tell me that you need a nesach for ayel? I have another pasuk, right? Why do I need this? Ayel tasa. Why do you need a pasuk for that? Amar Rav Sheshis, the rabbis, ayel shel Aaron. This ayel is coming to go ahead and be marba, the ayel of Aaron on Yom Kippur. Aaron brings the ayel on Yom Kippur. That ayel also needs a nesach. Says the Gemara, ayel shel Aaron min vo'adechem nafka. Guys, we had the pasuk of mo'adechem earlier. So why do you need the ayel over here? Says Gemara, Salkadei Chamina Hani Mili did Sibor. I would say Modechem. I would say that Sibor needs. Aval the Yochid Loi. I don't know, but I have a kasha on that. L'chayrakiyev did Sibor. That would teach me Shalmi Chagiga and Oilus Re'iyah. Modechem. That's the carbon of Yochid. That's the carbon of Yochid. I mean, I don't, you know. Okay, anyway. Umayshlam Yolis Yoledes. Salkadei Chamina, I would have thought Hani Mili Davashen Kavula Izman. Al Davash Kavula Izman Eimaloi. I would say that that you carbon Sibor, right? I'm a second. I'm a little lost over here. At least I'm recording Baruch Hashem. Okay, let me just get. I got a little lost over here. So you're telling me it's coming Eila Shel Aroin, but the Gemara that I know from Moedechem. Salkadei Chamin and Hani Mili, right? The something that becomes machmas the regel to tzibur aval be'el shel aron, which is the carbon of a yachid, but not needed. Therefore, you need the el to include that. For the Gemara, ma'ishnamei oilus yeledes, which is the carbon of a yachid, and you were married that already. So, why can't we learn from carbon yoledes, the yachid? Why do we need a special pasuk ayel to teach me aron? I should know from carbon yoledes. Sakla Ramina, there's a difference. Carbon yoledes is not kavuzman. Davashin kavuzman l'chevasai. Aval shekvula is man on Yom Kippur. So therefore it's kavei is man on Yom Kippur. I would think the korban v'yachid is not b'chal moedechem. So emaloi. I would say it's not in the parsha because it's what? It's not kavei is man. It is kavei is man. Kamash malon. That word ayel that needs nesachim. So now it says oila ayel lamali. What's the oil for? The Rabbi says a palgas. Guys, outside. A 1-year-old sheep and a 2-year-old sheep. A 1-year-old sheep is called a keves. A 2-year-old sheep is called an ayel. Up to 12 months, it's a keves. After 13 months, it's an ayel. In the 13th month, it's a palgas. It's nishtahi and nishtaher. Okay? So now, what happens if you bring a palgas? What do you bring? you bring you bring the of the aisle. You bring the two esroin of an aisle, not the isorin of isorin revius ahin fellas. You bring the stay esroin ushlishis ahin. You bring four loigin. So four loigin, yeah. Says the Gemara all aisle and Rabbi says a palgas to include a palgas. Now that a palgas brings like an aisle. Hanichel Rabbi Yochanan the Amar, who says that palgas is a beria b'fnei atzmai, it's considered seven beria. It's not a keves, it's not an ayil, it's a palgas. Guys, in other words, there's two ways to view the 13th month. I can view it as a separate entity, or I can view it as a suffix 12, a suffix 14. In other words, right? 13. In other words, do I view a palgas as a separate entity, or do I view it as a suffix lekeves, suffix ayil? So Bishleim, like Rabbi Yochanan, that it's a separate entity. You need a pasuk to tell me that what? That you bring two. But if it's a suffix, you don't need a pasuk to tell me a suffix, right? Says the Gemara. Hanichol Rabbi Yochanan that says what? It's a berry from the outside. It's not a krivoi. It says v'hikrivu maybe olav miskei ayol ve'ena oil lemizivcha. You bring a miskei ayol, but you're not yotzi yichiv. You'd have to bring an ayol. For Rabbi Yochanan. Oil ayil Rabbi says a palgas. It comes to include a palgas. El bar pardo who argues Rabbi Yochanan. The Amar Maisi Masni. You bring two and you make a condition. Guys, what are you saying? Good. I'm bringing a palgas. Guys, look at me. I'm bringing a palgas and I'm bringing two esroinim and revius and shlishas ahin, and I'm saying the following: if it's a ayil, I'm yotzei machiyav. If it's a keves, then the extra isaroin and the extra hin should be as an adava. Good. In other words, I'm covering both ends. So like him, why do you need the oi to go to, again, it's the suffix. Says the Gemara, the sveikahu, it's the kral rebuya sveika. Do I need a pasuk to include a sveika? Says the Gemara, vade l'parda kasha. In Nachnami, l'bar parda, its zicha is a kasha. Guys, geschmack. So again, what this Gemara is doing through is we're going through mamish the whole sugi of the Sachem Kimin Chaymer, Darshling, Risha, mamish Rachel Bitka Ketana, every single nuance of a lima. Look, I'm glad I put it out there. It's every single pitchifka you're Darshling. How we should remember part of them. You don't think about it. Baruch Hashem. So says the Gemara. Now. So loy bar parda sicha kasha. Now the pasuk says another pasuk. Okay, this pasuk in Aleph, guys. We just dashed put kocha yeyasa la shara echad, oy la ayla echad, oy la sebak fasim abizim. This is the amount. This is supposed to be chatzi ahin, revius ahin, shlishus ahin, revius ahin, right? So says the Gemara, now the Gemara is going to dash in, why do we learn from this pasuk? We're going to dash in, why do we learn from that pasuk? Okay? We're going to dash in what we learn from that pasuk. Did you just see that when I flashed it on the screen? It was there? It was there on the screen? Okay, great. Says the Gemara, Shara echad, ma tamid loymar, now, once upon a time, a ram was a sheep. Once upon a time, a par was an egel. If you bring an egel, what's the amount of nesachim you bring? You bring 6 and 3. You're going to bring the same thing, says the Gemara. So Yachal, I might think just like you mechalik between the keves and the ayel. Mechalik bein niskei pal and niskei egel. Tamid leima l'shara echad. Shara echad, only one. That's it. 6 hin, chatzia hin, which is 6 leg, and the shleishes roinim. Oila ayel. Now, what do you learn from the pasuk of Oila ayel? Matam leimar. Again, since pasuk Vav already described it, guys. Baruch Hashem, I'm so happy. So happy. So happy I did this. Look, pasuk Vav. Oila ayel tasa min chaseiles. Now pasuk Yud Aleph. Oila ayel. What do I need this for? I already had it over here. Why do I need it over here? I already had it over there. Why do I need it over here? Right? As I read the Gemara. Why do I need it over there? You make a chilik between a lamb and a ram. Yochel Mechalik ben Nischei ben Shtayim leNischei ben Shalosh. Now you go from 1 to 2, you make a chilik. Why don't you go to 2 to 3? Maybe a 3-year-old also has right? Once it's an ayel, whether it's a 2-year-old or an alta buck, a 3-year-old, right? It's a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, doesn't make a difference. You're going to bring the same amount. Oila sebak fasim. The pasuk says oila sebak fasim. Matam leima. Metzinu shechilik hakosa bein nischei keves lenischei ayel. Yochel nechalik bein nischei kivsa lenischei rechela. I might think you make a difference between a lamb and a ewe. Fellas, in the world of lambkite, there's different madrigas. There's a sheep and there's a ram. There's a lamb and there's a ewe, right? In the female variety, there ain't no chilik. It's just 1 esayrim and 3, and 3, a quarter of a hin. So you might think there you make a chilik between a lamb and a ram, and a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old, kivsa rechela, tambalema oila sebak fasim, right? Oila sebak fasim. So that's what we darshan from. Okay, we're darshan again pasuk Yud Aleph. So what do we have over here? Yud Aleph. We have koch yasa l'shore echad. What did we learn from shore echad, guys? We learned that the ayel, the egel, and the par is the same thing. Oila ayel. It doesn't make ayel echad. It doesn't make a difference whether it's a 1-year-old, 2-year-old. Oila sebak fasim. You're learning at what now? It doesn't make a difference. If it's a female, there's no difference whatsoever. Now we're dashing oy be'izim. What are you learning from the oy be'izim, right? That's what we're figuring out right now. What are you dashing from oy be'izim? I hope it doesn't make you crazy when I go back and forth with that pasuk. I want you to see it in the pasuk, or else it's just verta. It's just words. You see it in the pasuk. It makes. You know what you should do if you have time today. If you have a chumash Torah tamima, the chumash Torah tamima, you go through it. He brings on the bottom the Torah tamima. Always it synthesizes the Torah Shabbat Pen Torah B'Ksav. It'll be very, very geschmack. You would see it in there, exactly how it's done. You make the Torah makes the chilik between a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old. Let's make a difference between a young goat and an alta goat, right? There's no difference in the goat category. It's always going to be the little amount. You don't go to the 2-4. You keep it what? You keep it 1-3. Rav Papa Badikla Rava, but Rava check this out. Rava's check this out. Nischei rechela bekama. The nesachim and rechela bekama. Now Rashi brings, they're quoting a Gemara in Mishnah in Shkalim, fellas. When you would go ahead and bring the sachim, you didn't schlep your wine in. You didn't schlep your mincha in. You go ahead and you give money to the gizbar. He'd give you a settle. And there were 4 settlach. And it said a different one. And based on what it said in the settlach, you'd go to the room over there, and they would give you, I think it's the lishkas chesamais, right? It's one of the 4 in the Ezras Nashim guys. Lishkas chesamais. You'd go there and you'd pick up your stuff. The one that says gedi. So now he says nislas rechela be'kama. If it said you bought a rechela. Rechela is what? Is a 2-year-old female sheep. Upashtin lamasnisan gedi mishamesh nischei tzoin shel gedolim. If you said gedi, if your settle said gedi, you used it for what? The nesachim of tzoin, whether the gedolim or ketanim, whether it's zacharim or nekevos, right? You use them. It's the 1-3. You needed 1 isarin and 3 loigin. Chutz mishel elim, which you needed 2 esroinim and what? And 4 loigin. So that's Rava. Check this out, and we push it from that Mishnah. So that's what we do. Okay, that just concludes the shir. Baruch Hashem.